Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Greg Soulje, agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje, is here with us today. Welcome, Greg. Great to have you back at the start of this week.
Yeah, we're nice to be with you, Sarah, on a pretty much typical day's worth of mid-July weather for the plains, the Corn Belt. Folks in the Southern Canadian Prairie, our livestock friends up across the Dakotas, even experiencing just a slightest hint after 100-degree weather earlier on Monday, a hint of fall in the air the next few days up there. So they're beginning to make the change, and moisture too breaking out there. So except for some of those, tough areas of Central and South Texas, everybody else, plain states, cattle, corn, soybeans. If I'm missing anybody, let me know. We're all, I think, in relatively good shape weather-wise.
Getting some of that wildfire smoke again, it seems like.
Yeah, we had some of that, and some of that has to do with the influence of the big pond that's east of us called Lake Michigan. And when it gets into some of those urban areas, it creates an inversion, traps not only the smoke element that we're seeing out west and getting rained out across the northern plains and southern Canadian Prairie, but kind of the air pollution matters become into play. So there's air quality issues, both, in the urban areas of the Midwest, and a lot of times the folks in the Pacific Northwest, when they get shrouded in fires, then fog, late summer, early autumn out there. Sometimes there's air quality, breathing issues out there as well for a different reason. But yes, some of that stuff is in the air. It's been very visible here in Northern Illinois the past couple of days.
Oh, it sure has. A lot of warnings too I've seen out there for folks, just folks with issues in that regard. All right, here are your slides. Go ahead and give us the forecast.
Okay, welcome to a Tuesday, already the 15th of July. We are racing through the summertime season, and the corn and soybean fields are racing towards growth and development. And I wouldn't be surprised here. And an urban weather forecaster in the big city of Chicago actually tried to reference, but I think he referenced the wrong state, Iowa. I was listening correctly last night. The corn sweating issues, which is we're beginning to get there, not quite. He's trying to portray someone else, I think, that used to be on TV. In any event, the corn and soybean fields are looking fantastic by and large. And yes, there are pockets and there are issues in some areas, especially if you were hit with 5 or 6 inches of rain just south of Champaign, for example, over the past weekend. We had some flooding up over northwest Indiana last night, this morning down towards Knox County, French Lick, Indiana. Some quick 1 to 2 inch downpours, and sometimes that water drains off nicely, sometimes it doesn't. But as a whole, 74%, 3/4 of that U.S. corn crop is rated good to excellent. 70% of the beans. Saw a tweet by a gentleman, Arlen Suderman, one of those market guys, and he has a question, and I have a question. I don't know why there is talk of issues regarding some problems regarding pollination. I'm trying to figure out in this kind of weather pattern why there is the talk of that. So maybe someone can enlighten me. I've been doing this long enough, but I don't know really why there would be an issue with that at this point in the season. Maybe some of the drier areas of the Western Corn Belt are impacting that. I don't know, but otherwise we're in good shape. Strong cold front, by the way, running from the Sioux back across the northern plains into areas of Montana. And there's rain. Boy, there was rain across the southern Canadian Prairie. Those spring grain fields got rain, hopefully easing the fires farther north. And it is a fall feel up there north of the border. That strong cold front is straight from the Dakotas back through Wyoming and north of Sault Ste. Marie this morning. Some big storms through the Upper Lakes region. But while it is raining in Montana, they continue to struggle. 35% of the spring wheat, 65% of the rangelands are rated poor and very poor. They won't get out of the 50s across Montana. They didn't get out of the 40s and 50s into the northern end of the spring grain fields into central and northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan yesterday. So some of those livestock operations in the midst of a chilly, rainy weather pattern. Otherwise, 100-degree heat. What do you expect to space them out, water them down in the central high plains for the day-to-day? The wheat harvest has made good progress out of the wetter areas of the southern plains into the drier reaches of the Great Plains, and about 63% of that is complete. That's pretty much on target for the 5-year averages. Should have made this font a little bit bigger, but pretty quiet weather pattern, except for immense heat in Texas and the Rio Grande Valley for still cleanup operations down there. Tough on livestock as well. West Texas cotton and livestock country, they'll be up around 95 to 105. And the heat index values in those cleanup and recovery zones through central Texas pushing 115 for the day-to-day. Western states, again, some new fires, some issues beginning to break out this time, and it's probably contributing to some of the smoke through the Midwest on more of a west to east, and probably in the coming next couple of weeks, it's more of a zonal west to east flow, a flat hot ridge south, a strengthening ribbon of winds north of that hot ridge. So I wouldn't be surprised we transport that on a semi-regular basis when we don't rain it out into the northern and central plains and Corn Belt locale. So, and this time of the year, the dew points are up, but the air dries out quickly up aloft. You build the thunderheads, they collapse at a certain point, but they're still kicking off lightning, and that's how you get the fires going out of what we call dry-based thunderstorms or lightning storms, if you will, sort of the old school approach to naming that. Anyway, here we are on a Tuesday afternoon, and look at the rain through Big Sky and the chill, too, for livestock operations relative to mid-July out of Montana, the Dakotas, up north of the Canadian border as well. I believe east of the Black Hills, maybe from Bismarck southward to Pierre, they were up at around 100 degrees there yesterday and the day before. Daytime readings there will be in the 50s and 60s for the next couple. So that's a shocker of the system. Scattering of showers, thunderstorms, central and southern Corn Belt. Best coverage is I-70 corridor to the Ohio. And the rains are into play, and they are swirling from the Space Coast down to the Keys and back into the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico. No shortage of at least some drought easing rain down there in central and south Florida in the coming days. The storms will pick up. There's at least, I believe, and we'll see in a second, enhanced risk of severe weather for parts of the Dakotas, the upper Midwest for the day to day. You can see that shaded in red. More organized rains, that high, if you move it clockwise along those lines, that's an upshore, or at least I should say upslope flow. And so that's usually favorable for making rain as well in wintertime. It's snow. But moisture for Montana and parts of Wyoming, and the showers and thunderstorms continue down through Florida. Little change, except the rains pick up where? Exactly where we need them, in the upper Midwest, the western and northwestern Corn Belt locales. That front, while it's kind of losing and will lose its identity and its vim and vigor, will not lose its identity, or at least its capability of making showers and thunderstorms farther south. There's other little ribbon there you can see across Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Scattered showers, thunderstorms there. Still nothing official on the books here for that system east of Jacksonville, but the rains continue on both sides of the Sunshine State. And the rains pick up too where we need it. That's right, northern Illinois, where we need it, southern Wisconsin, Iowa, western Corn Belt locales. And much like we had here last weekend and days before, coverages tend to be good, but the variance, because of some of these slower moving storms, from quarter to 3/4 inch garden variety, and maybe locally to an inch in some spots, to 1 to 3 in that same amount of time in other areas. And that's just the nature of the beast of summertime rains across the heartland. But it's rain, at least. And I know it is fair season. I know it's festival season. And I know it's, rusty iron equipment season, but we need the rain. Rain makes grain, according to Mr. Samuelson. That's Orion Samuelson we speak of. And the scattered showers, thunderstorms continue into Thursday across the Midwest. They'll be ebbing and flowing in and out probably the next 5 to 10 days across the plains and Corn Belt locale. So if you get missed, you'll ultimately get something. It's the cumulative basis that we tend to look at these rain forecasts here from a coverage and a moisture total standpoint, of which there are kind of 3-4 different areas. Montana, the Dakotas is the next couple of days. We'll look at the moisture plume out of Old Mexico into Arizona, that I-4 corridor. Either it's a dust storm or a flood the next few days down there. Organized rains for the Great Plains into the western and upper Midwestern areas of the country, including livestock country. So we'll get some additional recharge for pasture land, some muddy grounds. Who's to complain? No real chill stress, as mentioned, because except up across the Dakotas, Canadian Prairie, maybe, with the rain coming on down and through the Ohio Valley and down across areas, the deep south and southeastern states. And that big blob of moisture is some of that tropical thing. Don't think it'll be named. It's probably going to be a depression, but depressions that hit land tend to be big rainmakers. And I think Cotton Belt country is expected to see that here probably in the next couple of days. In any event, enhanced risk of severe weather, livestock people out centered on maybe about North Platte, Broken Bow, Grand Island, just to name a few. Heads up on some pretty good storms this afternoon. Looks like the wind profile up aloft and the degree of cool and cold air aloft is probably more of a high wind, isolated tornado prospect, and still some large hail, but kind of a different setup. So heads up on the severe weather potential I-80 corridor heading through Nebraska. There's the fire risk for the next couple of days, expanding through Nevada, Utah, northern parts of Arizona, and then through the Snake River Valley, Treasure Valley of Idaho. And yeah, you'll get a little bit of rain out of that too, but it's mostly all this is induced because of fuel content dry vegetation, and lightning. That's the big story out there. The story otherwise continues to be heat for the eastern states, organized, significant, heavy rainfall in pockets, North Illinois, Iowa, southern Minnesota, and southern Wisconsin. So timely rains, no big heat. If we could stay away from the derecho effect, and I think that's a story next week we're going to have to keep an eye on. Someone, I believe, is Prairie Farmer in their digital edition, got a copy of that sent to me, did a nice story on it. Is that time of the year when we got to look at green snap and lodging and blow down when these thunderstorms, you get the rain, but sometimes they come through pretty ferociously with the wind and hail aspect. There is where that X is. That's some semblance of a circulation southeast of Jacksonville. There'll be a trend westward across Florida into the Gulf of Mexico and maybe to depression status. That's winds under 39 miles per hour, but these things just kind of enhance moisture. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a tap of some of that tropical moisture into parts of the Corn Belt, southern and eastern areas, probably over the weekend, more so next week. And some pretty hot weather, not hot by itself, but a lot of humidity, a lot of high dew points up in that 70, 75 degree range. So the National Hurricane Center these days, they put percentages on what they think is going to be the development or the lack thereof of tropical systems. So it's there. You know, if it becomes a tropical storm, it's named for just a few hours and then it moves inland. It's more of a rainmaker for that part of the country. 5-day rain totals on that strong cold front, by the way, is coming on in, but the rain totals conservatively 3 to 6 inches out of some of that cotton belt country along the Gulf Coast. Any event, that cold front is going to lose a lot of its identity, turn more west to east, the upper level winds, and hence the cool air stays there. And in the meantime, 1 to 2, probably more likely 1 to 3 inches along that boundary, which will include the Ohio Valley, the Great Plains, parts of the Midwest and southern Great Lakes region. Just hot and humid weather down through central and south Texas. We're capping off the atmosphere, too hot to make widespread rains down there. And so the opportunity for additional cleanup and recovery continues on. The next 5 days from an upper air perspective, you can see that ribbon of air generally west to east where those green lines are tightened up. That's the main polar jet, the rain-producing jet. And yeah, it begins to migrate southward a little bit this time of the year. That's a little bit aggressive, at least Mother Nature putting it that way. The forecast looks to be that way. But it's kind of the right idea. And you can see some H's under there. That's kind of the hot ridge at 588 or 594. Don't worry about the number. It just means daytime temperatures into the low to mid 90s. And some spots into the upper 90s to near 100 as you venture south into the southern plains. But don't think it'll be that high, but the humidity value will be up and elevated. You can see a little low making its way, or at least a channeling effect between one high in the southeast, another one in the southern plains that allows Gulf moisture to work north. There's that west to east jet stream pattern. So systems move along. Same with the smoke. They don't make much southward penetration. If we can bust the cap, you rain a couple of 2 or 3 inches out in like an hour, hour and a half time. If you can't bust the cap, then you don't get any rain out of these things. And that's about the way the weather plays out across the plains and Corn Belt the next 5 to 7 days. And you can see a myriad of frontal boundaries. They are pretty much anemic this time of the year, especially when you have this west to east flow. A lot of them get turned right back around. They move into the plains. But along those boundaries, the red half circles or the triangles or blue triangles, kind of either side of that is where we tend to generate these clusters of showers and thunderstorms, either as the warm to hot air returns or it gets suppressed on southward. And if you can undercut those boundaries with that west to east ribbon of air we just looked at, you get lifting, converging air masses or converging wind field, and that's how you make these off to the races showers and thunderstorms. And again, they can be anywhere from enough to wreck the car wash and the truck wash to flooding out the bed of the truck, if you will. And livestock operations got to keep an eye on these things well into the northern plains in particular, east central plains, western Corn Belt areas going forward, at least from a severe weather standpoint. Next 7 days, everyone gets rain enough to wash out the spider webs. And I don't think there's many spider webs and dead spiders in the rain gauges, not in mine, by the way. And I dumped out earlier in the week 198 in my particular world here in northern Lake County, Illinois, up near the Wisconsin line. I don't think I've seen the lawn this green and lush, and the need or the enjoyment, for me at least, to go out and cut the lawn. That's the way I get away from this stuff. And it is thick and lush for a mid-July date. And rain too, Gulf Coast areas, you can see that. Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic states, where else? The Plain states, where else? Into Arizona and parts of Old Mexico. That's the monsoon setup, and Big Sky Country through Wyoming and parts of Colorado. So everyone else gets additional drought relief centered on the worst dry drought-ridden areas. We should see improvement here on Thursday's drought monitor when we get together on Friday. over northern Illinois, northern Indiana, southern Michigan. We should see improvement too. West of the Missouri and Nebraska. I don't know how much we'll get much relief in the western states. That'll be an ongoing story over there. And Florida, too, should continue to see some improvement in the drought weather pattern. Again, all or nothing when they tend to rain it out down there. The next 6 to 10 days, you can see kind of the last line of that kind of arcing pattern, if you will, upper level wind pattern from the Pacific Northwest into the northern plains, the Great Lakes region, the northeast of New England. Underneath that somewhere is the hot high or highs. So we can get in between those. That's the way you channel up moisture along with showers and thunderstorms. And so the pattern probably stays wetter, and you'll see that in a second here, over much of the northern and eastern plains and Corn Belt locales. And it's going to get a little more hot and humid oriented. I think this is the beginning. It's probably the last week of this month and more so into August and September, where the D word expands again, tightens its grip again, and some of the same areas will see some short-term relief. First, the western Corn Belt and maybe to the Mississippi Valley. But for others, think this is going to lead to an early harvest season if we play our cards right, and if we can get things ramped up from tropical systems coming through the Atlantic and swinging up the western Atlantic, or unfortunately into the eastern United States. Certainly not hoping that for anyone, but it certainly sometimes it can improve the weather pattern or cause a detriment to the weather pattern across the heartland. There's the next 6 to 10 days, at least from the Fed's thinking. Got no beef with that. That's about the right idea. But this time of the year, Sarah, sometimes those rains are of the derecho variety. I believe it was Prairie Farmer, and I did a quick glance through it, but a nice piece on the lodging, the blowdown, the green snap. You get the rain, but then you don't have anything to show for it sometimes this time of the year. And we've had, I believe it was a year ago today that we had a pretty impressive derecho that came out of Iowa through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and did all sorts of damage to some crop areas and structural areas here. So it is that time of the year. If you get things right and going in the atmosphere, we're off to the races and chasing these things around.
It sure is. It's amazing we're here talking about harvest already and what's ahead. I mean, that's not that far off when you really think about it. And
yep.
You know,
I wouldn't be surprised. It's an early, we'll put it this way, an early and often start to the harvest season. But we need to kind of get the tropical, and we don't want to, again, I don't want not trying to bring Armageddon on someone, but we need, unless the tropics get busy here in a hurry out of the Atlantic as a named circulations, I think we still are in a pretty active weather pattern. So we're still betting the farm that we'll get into a drier, hotter spell around here and diminish the rains and get into an early harvest season. But that's something that's still at least a couple of 2 or 3 weeks away.
And you know, way back when I used to have to detassel corn, and that would be about the time that we're doing it here. I keep seeing those tassels, and I want to just go out and pull those out. But luckily, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work.
Same phrase I use when I'm talking to the family. Back in the day.
Back in the day, exactly. Well, Greg, we'll catch up with you again here on Friday and get an update. And then, of course, next week is a big, I think we're going to take a look at the rest of the summer. And as we talked about, maybe a little bit into the harvest season as to what's ahead with our longer term outlook here on Wednesday at 1 p.m. on Feedstuffs 365. That's next Wednesday on the 23rd. So look forward to that.
That's right. 23rd.
And of course, in between there, we also have This Week in Agribusiness, where you can see Greg every weekend and get the another update on the forecast. So
exactly.
Very good. All right, Greg, we thank you. We'll see you Friday, and we thank all of you for tuning in as well.